Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Okie doke, we are back again. This is the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, episode 126. I am Charlie Carden, your Trek Lord of West Michigan, joined as always by my intrepid companions, Mr. Peter Stein. Peter, good afternoon.
Hello.
And returning after an absence necessitated by the facts of life, but very, very glad to have him back, Mr. Aaron Heminger. Aaron, not only welcome back, but congratulations, your SFI vessel, the and chapter, the USS Grand Petoskey, now out of shakedown, officially earning that NCC title, and you earning the rank of captain. So congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. Very excited about it and happy to be back.
And we're happy to have you. Gotcha. Well, we have a pretty exciting show. We're going to be talking about the end of an era, the conclusion of Star Trek Discovery, for good, for bad, or somewhere in the middle. We will take you through all of it. But we also have an exciting announcement about new programming that we're going to be getting in just a few weeks here with the return of Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 on Netflix, of all places, which, of course, we've known about for quite some time. But before we do that, got to pay the piper. The butcher bill always comes due, and happily so, because we begin every one of our Secret Friend shows by giving homage to the fine folks over at our Secret Friends Unite Patreon. If you visit patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, you get to try out all of our extra bonus stuff, including ad-free versions of our programs, and all the additional fun bonus content we do currently on our show, The Facts of Geek Life. Peter and I are breaking down Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica. We're in the middle of season 2. And Aaron, at some point, I'm going to pin you down for a show. I thought we had a short list for something for you and me to do. I know that your schedule is going to get busy soon, but we will get you on the board and get you out there. So, Todd, who is my long-running partner, and I do a show about comics called Spinner Rack. At any rate, all of that material is there. And if you visit, again, patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, you can try it out for 7 days for free. And if you like it, we'd love to have you stick around. All right. On our Friends with Benefits level, Corey and HD, John Sedorf, Brendan Myers, the awesome Phoenix Sisters cosplay, Kelly and Crayley, lovely ladies, and Matthew Keel. The BFF level is the wonderful Nias family of the Twin Cities, Sean, Stella, and Henry, and Missy Merchant. We are very glad to have each and every one of you on board. One more time, that's patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, 7 days for free. And as Arnie likes to say in Predator, when he chucks that big knife at the bad guy, stick around. All righty, right. So, Star Trek Prodigy, at long last. If you're not French, you've not seen season 2 yet, because it was just a few months back. And had anybody heard anything more about how that went down? Were there any ramifications?
There were no ramifications that I heard. Apparently, they had the rights to do it, and they just decided to release it early, and there was no clause saying they couldn't. So
wow. And to Netflix's credit and to Paramount's credit or whatever, we've not heard any details about the episodes, like, and here's a full episode, or at least maybe I wasn't looking. Maybe it's out there in the dark web. I have no idea.
I mean, it hasn't been posted around that as far as I've seen. It's been kept pretty mum, unless you used a VPN and went to the specific French site and read the descriptions of the episode.
Gotcha.
Which I did for a second just to confirm that they were there, but
yeah,
I don't read French particularly well, so
right. Well, I don't read it at all, and I'm also not a French Canadian, so that worked out just fine for me. I didn't even seek it out. But the great news is, as of Monday, July 1st, so to kick off your 4th of July week, all 20 episodes of the second and potentially final season of the show, though, with the merger. Oh, that's the other thing that I didn't actually post a note on, is that the Skydance Paramount merger is kind of inching ever closer. We know the Skydance people are very fond of Star Trek, so potentially that could mean more content for us. But that's not what we're focusing on right now. We're talking about Prodigy, all 20 half-hour segments dropped at the same time. Now that kind of flies in the face of what we do here, because we'd like to talk about things kind of in segments. So we're gonna bring you that content on our show, but we come out every other week. We're gonna parcel it out a little bit, but the good news is it's always there for you. But we don't want to spend one episode talking about 20 segments, because it'd be 3 hours long, and then we'd have nothing else to talk about for till who knows when. So, but anyway, Netflix has posted their synopsis of the program. Now Starfleet trainees Dal and his friends embark on another adventure to solve the mystery of the Protostar, their lost vessel from season 1, and save a planet from destruction, because that's what they do in Star Trek. So I'm trying to remember, Aaron, were you with us for any part of talking about Prodigy? I feel like you weren't.
No, yeah, Prodigy's all new to me. I haven't. I think I've watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes of it, but I haven't gotten very far
Gotcha.
into it yet.
Gotcha. Well, now you at least have a reason to blast through,
Yeah, I gotta
or
get caught up.
or at least watch a YouTube video that tells you what happened in season 1. That can't be too hard. But
Yeah.
I will admit I've not gone back to the series since it's been on Netflix. I do actually own it digitally, because when it was discontinued from Paramount in the great shakeup that happened last summer, I ran right out and got it, because I wanted to make sure I had access to it. But lo and behold, with all of the content I know that I consume for the 3 of the shows that I'm on our network, plus all of our Patreon stuff, I've not gone back and watched it again. So, yeah, so there you go. There's your assignment, Aaron, to at least watch a YouTube video before we get there, but you got some time. Peter, I know you enjoy the show. So what are your thoughts? Yeah, what are your thoughts and hopes for season 2? Without giving away anything that might spell Aaron. So your spoiler free hopes.
Yeah, so spoiler free. There's not a whole lot I can say. There's a certain character that has like a brief like flashback appearance that I'm sure will be a focal point of this upcoming season.
Right.
I'm excited to see more of that character. If only because I'm curious to see how they write this character, seeing as the last time we saw him was there was some writing weirdness in the final season.
Right.
So I'm curious to see that. I'm excited to see another legacy character coming back.
Right.
So my prediction is that we're going to spend a lot of time dealing with the backstory that we got a hint of in season 1, and then so we'll see probably a little bit more flashbacky stuff, but then we'll get some resolution, and Janeway will have some. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with that.
Right.
Janeway and that character.
I mean, at the very least, Aaron, have you seen, back at Star Trek Las Vegas late last summer, they did release a clip of the show. You've seen that, correct?
I think I did. Yeah. I've
okay, gotcha.
I know enough to be dangerous.
You know enough to be dangerous. So if you're familiar with the clip, it did introduce the fact that the EMH, played by the fantastic Robert Picardo, who April and I have gotten a chance to spend time with both on the cruise and at Star Trek Las Vegas, just a super nice guy, is back as potentially a main part of the show for series 2. So I'm looking forward to that. All characters are expected to return, but not necessarily knowing what will become of them. So I'm excited. So is because that happens on the first week of July, and we're still in early June. Our next episode, we will return to doing the random episode, which we have selected, and I'll mention again later. I think I know what it is, but I want to look. I believe it's a TNG episode from season 1. I think it's the Arsenal of Freedom, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound familiar?
Sounds about right, yeah.
That's what we'll be watching for our next episode. But when we get into July, we will be bringing you the first 2 episodes of Prodigy Season 2. So Aaron's got that amount of time to, at very least, watch a YouTube summary. If it as busy as you are, you totally have my blessing to do so. So
okay, fair enough.
Oh, good. All right, good deal. All right, well, let's get into it. The nitty gritty, the very official end of a series. We're looking at the end of Star Trek Discovery. We're talking about episodes 9 and 10. 10 being a double-length episode, as you would expect a finale to be. But we're coming to the end of the road, so we're going to talk about the episodes individually, give our thoughts along the way, and then we're going to do a little very light series recap, favorite moments, least favorite moments, overall impression of where it lands in the in the franchise, and we'll have a good go of it. So, Peter, if you would be so kind as to read us the recap of episode 9.
All right, season 5, episode 9, Lagrange Point. After Maul and the Breen capture a mysterious structure that contains the progenitor's power, Captain Burnham must lead a covert mission to retrieve it before the Breen figure out how to use it. Exactly what it says on the tin.
I hear you. Yeah, and I did read in the cold open, bounce music and busy montage time, because that's we get everybody running around. So, Peter, where let's hear about what you thought about this episode.
This episode had some interesting stuff where they had to infiltrate the Breen ship. I thought that them sneaking around, there were some interesting points. There was also, it also felt like they may have used the I'm just gonna act like a butt a little bit too much
when they were posing as Breen, because it was on the ship. It was Michael, Book, Adira, who I'm not fond of, and who is the fourth character?
Crap, I can't remember his name. He's a gold shirt.
Aaron, feel free to jump in. Was it? Oh, was it the? It was the Asian character.
It's the Asian gold shirt. Whose name
definitely wears gold shirt.
Yes, and he is who I as I mentioned last episode, he actually had temporary command of the ship, and I thought he did a kick-ass job. I'm drawing a blank on his name, so I apologize to that actor and that character out there in the. I'm putting that out of the universe that
Reese,
I do enjoy.
Reese,
thank you very much. Oh my goodness!
Had to double check. I was like, I don't remember his name.
Thank you. My apologies. So
yeah, but it was just weird to me that they I mean, the Breen are jerks, but then the interesting thing for me was that they decided that it's like, we're gonna pretend to be in charge, like we outrank everybody we come across. Like, part of me is like, that might be a little hard.
Right,
but they do. And then there's a hilarious moment where Book is trying to distract this guy, and he ends up like almost flirting or something,
hitting on him or something.
Yeah,
it calls
funny,
it.
But...
Yeah, and I wrote in there. I said it kind of calls into question what Breen sexuality is, or if that's such a thing, because he talks about basically sitting and he says, well, I'll make room for you in my oil bath. So I'm like, is that some kind of like creepy hot tub situation that he's talking about? Creepy hot tub situation. That could be an early. That could be an early favorite.
100% clear that it is flirting, because we don't know anything about the Breen, so it could just be like there's some sort of ritual that they do where they're sitting in a bath. I don't know. Like, it was comical. But...
Right. Oh my gosh. So, other thoughts before we move on to Aaron?
It was interesting to see how they opened up the device and like sent people through, and then tried to like attach them with the equivalent of rope. Stick them in a hole, see if it sticks. Like, it's a trans-dimensional gateway. The rope's not going to hold.
Not your canary in a coal mine kind of situation.
So they learned that, which you saw coming from a while away, but it was still amusing.
Right.
The ship staying cloaked the whole time was, standard. Saru doing his... Saru's moment was interesting, where he comes in and threatens the other Primarch.
Right.
So that was a good little character moment. It was jarring for me to have him like fully embrace the predatory part that he has now understood of the Kelpians, just because he lived so long without that.
Right. Again, it's true.
That's off-screen character development. That's fine, but it was just a little weird for me.
Yeah, that does seem like something that's kind of a weird, like, well, okay, we did have that moment.
It was like very, very confident Saru, which is fine. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It was just It was just like they're leaning into this action Saru thing, which sometimes feels like they pulled it out of nowhere every once in a while.
A bit tacked on.
It works, but there's a little bit of a
right. No, I totally understand.
So yeah, but overall, like, it's fine. The hanging about on the Breen ship was, I mean, it was the whole episode.
Yeah.
And part of it was like, you should have been found out by now, because you're just standing around.
They do a lot of I noticed that there was a lot of like, when the translation sounded kind of like if someone was speaking like English as a third or fourth language, it kind of seemed like a phishing email. Like, just some of their overall speech syllabants, just really. And then, anyway, I'll get to my thoughts after Aaron gets the chance to chat. So Aaron, please break it down for us.
Yeah, so overall, I felt it was a pretty solid episode. I enjoyed it. Me being a big DS9 fan and just a fan of the Dominion War in general, I was excited to see all the content with the Breen and see them come back and their kind of reimagined and updated armor for the 31st century and everything. That was a lot of fun. I do have a couple concerns about the way they're treating the Breen now, especially with revealing what they look like and everything the way they have.
The Jello.
I'm really concerned that we're very dangerously close to Borging the Breen at this point. In terms of like when we first saw the Queen of the Borg, and it was like, oh, this is kind of a neat idea, and then that was kind of the start of the downfall of their presence and their prestige.
kept watering it down.
It's like that's the one thing with the Breen is we've still got a ton of mystery around them, and there's all this stuff that we don't know, and that's kind of what makes them exciting and kind of dangerous.
Right.
But I think they did a good job of skirting that line for the most part in this episode, where we got a good hint of what's going on, but we didn't necessarily get a lot of explanation. And I hope that's a trend that continues with species and beings like this, that we don't know everything. And I think that's way more interesting than having everything put out there on a platter for you.
Right.
I was really laughing at the beginning when they showed up and they were scanning the canister or whatever, the artifact, I guess.
I called it. I said, "Look, you found a mini kit," because I love the Lego video games, and that was I almost might change the episode title of that. Look, you found a mini kit.
I like that title. Look, you found a mini kit.
Look, you found a mini kit. Please continue while I update that.
Yeah, no. I thought it was really funny that they're sitting here and they found this artifact and they're debating about what they're going to do with the artifact, and the Breen just come in and just tractor beam it aboard the ship, and there's Decker just like, yep, there it goes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. It's like everyone's dithering, and then the Breener's like, yoink.
Yeah, it was a very classic Homer Simpson yoink. Yeah. Oh, look, you found a mini kit, because that's exactly what that thing is. I'm like, you got to find the other 9 if you want to unlock, invincibility or whatever it is on, Star Wars Episode 3, the Lego Star Wars.
Yeah, that was really great. All the stuff with Saru and the diplomacy stuff. I love diplomacy and seeing that in action in Star Trek and everything. That was delightful for me. Watching Saru kind of bluff his way through that negotiation was a lot of fun. I was just sitting here shaking my head. I'm like, he's gonna pull it off, but man.
Oh man. Awesome. Well, cool. I any further thoughts? I'll take us home, because I had just a couple of things here and there.
No, that's all my takeaway from that one.
Gotcha. I love you guys talking first, because it takes all the heavy lifting off of my plate. This was directed by Jonathan Frakes, which owes itself to obviously so many great things. I wrote, yes, bad guys got the thing. Now we have to get the thing back. And something that April and I rewatched these this afternoon, and I was actually going to invite her on with us, but she's like, I am dead. We were gone for the weekend. She's like, I'm dead tired. I just don't even feel like talking. But something that she reinforced to me is that there's a lot of overly convenient happenstances that particularly happen around Michael. She's got the answer to this. In one of these, she knew a Breen expression that really saved the day. You know what I mean? And it had to do with the hot oil party when, Book was distracting the other guy. So, and a lot of that also happens with, I think with Adira, who's a character I'm not terribly fond of, saying, oh, I memorized this transporter protocol that if we get in there and do this thing, I'm like, so, my final analysis of the episode is that we've got way too many plot developments. It's so convenient. It feels like a Meijer gas station to me. It's like a C-store. All right, I can pick up a pack of smokes and a hot, and a Mountain Dew. Yeah. It was too much for me. So there's just a lot of the season that's kind of relied on that kind of thing. And then, we've got high tech, but high tech doesn't work when it doesn't fit the plot. So,
it's to poke at a sore point that it's not helping the Mary Sue argument.
Yeah.
My wife had a funny comment about that when we were watching it, and that she saw that Discovery had a cloak, and she was like, oh my God, even the ship is a Mary Sue.
No, my God. Oh,
when they engaged the cloak a couple episodes ago, it was I forgot they had a cloak. The Federation wasn't supposed to have a cloak. Wait, what?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I think they explained it at some point in a previous episode, but it's
But
still
the thing is,
it's still,
none of us remember it. You know what I
so
mean?
maybe they didn't. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
that's a bad thing. The same thing with the transporter, and sometimes you can have this great tricorder that tells you everything, and sometimes it just doesn't work. There's a force field, or the Wi-Fi is not working, so you can't use whatever. So I get annoyed by that. So I've been doing episode ratings. That really detracted from me from this episode. I gave this one a 6 out of 10 because I thought that even though we've been challenged by some really hodgy-podgy things on this kind of clue quest that got us to this point, now that the clue quest is over, we're still going forward with the conveniently sneaking things in, and that's just very. I didn't even think of the Mary Sue aspect because that's a dirty expression that nobody likes to throw
I
out
know
there.
that's why I was like, I'm just gonna
But
poke this thing that everyone hates. But.
It kind of, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, you know what I mean? That's kind of where we're stuck. So, based where would you guys 1 out of 10 for these, Aaron?
6.5 out of 10.
Oh, there you go. Slightly better than me. How about you, Peter?
Probably a 6, just like
yeah,
you.
Exactly. No, that's all right. Well, okay. Well, let's move on to the moment that some people have been waiting for. The end of Star Trek Discovery. Aaron, if you would be so kind to give us the summary of life, itself.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, life itself. Trapped inside a mysterious alien portal that defies familiar rules of time, space, and gravity, Captain Burnham must fight Maul and the environment itself in order to locate the progenitor's technology and secure it for the Federation. Meanwhile, Booker puts himself in harm's way to help Burnham survive, and Raynor leads the USS Discovery in an epic winner-take-all battle against Breen forces.
I love it! Oh, Raynor. So fantastic. All right, you have earned the right for first blood. So Aaron, take it away.
Okay, yeah. Interesting episode. I it was pretty good. The one thing I got to give Discovery credit for is they do beautiful locations and alien designs, and I really enjoy seeing the updated makeup on a lot of characters. Like, I know a lot of people get upset over the continuity on some of that stuff, but I think it's kind of neat to see different takes on all these creatures and everything. And I definitely thought they did a good job on the progenitor makeup in this episode. This was an alien species we saw one time in the TNG episode, but they somehow, I always thought the makeup was kind of bland and it looked very similar to the founders from DS9, but
right.
It didn't help it was the same actress.
Well, it was before the founders came along, because that episode, The Chase, came out in '93. We first met Odo in well, I guess it was also in '93, but it didn't quite. But yeah, Salome Jens, who played the female shapeshifter, that was in '95. But yes, it was very similar. But do keep in mind, both that character, the female progenitor, and this character, another female progenitor, are both holographic, or some kind of dream sequence represent, so they could look like anything, because it's not really in front of you, it's a hologram. So, but anyway, I digress. Please.
I didn't think of that, but that's certainly true. But it was really interesting the way that she looked. I thought she looked very more alien and more lifelike, and I thought it was a really cool concept. The I think I called it the Heaven Space Lab that they were inside of for the majority of the time. I didn't know what
Heaven's Gate. Uh-oh.
Yeah, all right. That was a beautiful and very interesting design, and I loved touring that and everything. I'm not gonna lie, this episode had me yelling at the TV a lot. A couple of times.
Oh no.
I really wanted to like this finale like so bad. like every part of me wanted to like
all
it.
Hope for all good things, and we often get
something in the middle.
Voyages.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think that's a little harsh, but anyway.
Yeah, Burnham was just, oh my god, she drove me nuts. Like she's going through this, and she's all like, all the Breen are attacking her, and she's like, wait, no, don't fight, let's resolve this peacefully. And then she finds Maul, and then she's like, no, don't fight, let's resolve this peacefully. And Maul's like, yeah, okay, let's be peaceful. And then they walk a few steps, and then Burnham's just like, okay, now let's fight. Why? Why?
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
You have a peace. You have a ceasefire. Why are you picking a fight with her now? So then, I mean, it was
because there would be no joy without punch-ups. That could be another title for an episode. Yeah, I write punch-up in my notes every time there's a fight because that's all it is. It's you've got to have a solid couple of moments of doing some jujitsu and doing flips and shit, and
There's plenty of episodes in the past where we had no fighting, and those episodes are great.
Right, exactly, yeah.
It's not necessary. I mean, it can be okay as long as it progresses the plot. But my big problem with this was it did nothing to progress the plot. There was no change in the story. There was no outcome. It didn't drive the story forward. It was just violence and visual eye candy for the sake of violence and visual eye candy. And that's why I was yelling at the screen about. And then later, we go on and the whole thing where she goes, figures out the puzzle and goes inside to speak with the progenitor, and the progenitor is like, I'll teach you everything. Time doesn't move the same here. Your friends are fine. And she's like, no, I gotta hurry. I'm like, Michael, pay attention to what's going on here. You're outside of time and space.
Do you hear the words coming out of my mouth?
Right? You can take your time. You can learn everything you want to learn and then form a plan and come out and everything's going to be fine. Anyway.
Yeah, then, she's like, nope.
Yeah, she's like, nope, I got my priorities. And then after all this, she oh God. And then they threw the whole thing into a black hole. And
literally.
I'm like, why?
You spend the whole season doing this, and I'm like, yeah, because she gets out of there and she's like, well, we had a lot of lessons, and what I really learned was that we're all the same anyway. So they're and the ultimate big reveal, sorry if I jump in here, is that the progenitor's tech is a cloning element. So it's like Camino from Star Wars, right? Except they create, they can't recreate memories, so they can't dub somebody a la like the clones from Spider, the clone saga in Spider-Man, which was very big in the 90s, where they made a clone that had somebody else's memory. So yes, Maul's whole quest is she wants to bring her intended back from the dead, but can't do it because he would just be some dude, like he wouldn't know her, and so the whole thing kind of gets thrown out the window. So but doesn't cloning exist elsewhere already in
cloning already exists. The way that it's described, this is a little bit different.
Okay.
But yes, cloning does exist in Star Trek in various places. Usually they don't like it, but yes, it exists.
Right, yeah, there's a episode of the Up the Long Ladder.
I wasn't going to mention names, but
yes, I'm sorry. That's okay. That episode is plenty meh, but yeah, that is really what it embraces. That most people don't like the thought of being cloned.
Yeah.
But So anyway, Aaron, back to you. I apologize. I jumped in.
I just want to say the whole thing that pissed me off about her decision at the end is she's sitting here and she's talking about this is too much power for any one person to have. And it's like, okay, but it's kind of a hypocritical argument because why does it make you the one person who decides what's best for the rest of the galaxy and throw it in? I'm just saying, I understand her thinking and everything, but it's not like you're giving it to one person. You have an entire federation that can learn about it and learn, I mean, this is the foundation, the building blocks of the universe. I think that's worth examining. Yes, there's great potential for harm there, but also, I mean, you can learn about yourselves and you don't necessarily have to use the technology, but there's no reason why you can't learn from it. That's the point of the Federation. That's the point of exploration, and
it sounds, by the sound of it, you're kind of feeling it's very anti-Star Trek.
Yes.
Or very anti. Potentially. All right, let me jump in here. I'm just going to point out a few of my grievances. There is a big part unrelated to anything you said, is that they pull a total Riker maneuver from Insurrection by literally igniting the plasma inside of a nebula to blow up other ships. And one of the fucking characters has the nerve to say, oh my God, that's brilliant. And I'm like, oh my God. Nobody reads, apparently. The 31st century. All right, that was my big annoyance. Yes, lots of punch ups. The tech was left kind of feeling like The Fifth Element, which, from that movie, The Fifth Element, which again was French.
Mhm.
We already talked about the French in this, which wasn't it love in that movie? Todd,
It
my
was, yeah.
partner, always says that The Fifth Element is pizza, which I prefer. So we'll just call The Fifth Element pizza. This definitely turns into Michael Burnham in The Last Crusade, because there's a lot of Grail Knight moments. So you've got to stay here. And she's like, well, I just don't know. And blah, blah, blah. And oh, yeah, a lot of that. I want to know what Ferengi Rummy is, a card game. Is that just regular Rummy, but the women can't wear clothes? I know they finally changed it at the end of DS9, but it seems kind of bizarre. The whole thing with the
It definitely
triangle.
felt like a throwback where it's like Ferengi in alien species insert Earth card game instead of
Yeah.
like it's Tongo.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not?
Why not it really make it, something that doesn't just sound like that. So yeah, I agree with you that the whole progenitors, the entire fetch quest of the season ended up kind of being nothing. It ended up being not this. It's a great technology that can reshape the galaxy.
It ended up being rather anticlimactic.
Yeah, because it's not a technology that can reshape the galaxy. It's cloning, which they already have. It's not the Genesis device, which is the ability to literally reshape the galaxy. That's much scarier than this. This is like, oh, well, we don't really want people to be able to do cloning what they already do. So that was annoying. I agree. And I'm also super annoyed that Michael actually said infinite diversity and infinite combinations is kind of like oh, look, you said the thing. Ugh. And then, yeah, anytime we have Tilly and Adira talking, I just need it to end. So we had a big Adira speech, and I just really didn't care for that. Peter, I know that your big moment as the Enterprise guy came at the end in the big scene between Kovich and Michael. Yeah. So talk to me about that.
Can I make a couple comments about things?
By all means.
Okay.
By all means.
So most of what has been said, I don't need to rehash. But one thing I do want to point out, because I've been picking at this every time it comes up, there's another Mass Effect reference.
Oh,
as much as I love Mass Effect, drove me up a freaking wall where the progenitor goes, it's like, we didn't invent this technology. We found it. I'm sitting here going, great, Keepers, Citadel, bullshit, Reapers, damn it. And
I'm going to call bullshit.
And so then it made me think of this whole thing that they had with her and the technology. It felt very Shepard and the Catalyst, if you're familiar with that at all.
Absolutely, 100%.
Kind of, sort of, but yes.
Yeah, so basically in Mass Effect, they're trying to solve the whole issue of annihilation. And there's this computer program that he has to talk to and figure out the correct decision. You end up getting 3, which is like synthesis, so take the power to yourself, control, where you take over the enemy, or destroy them. And then technically there's a 4th option, which is what Burnham ends up choosing, which is do jack shit.
Oh yeah, jack shit. I know that card. It's the jack shit card in the deck. There we go.
In Mass Effect, that ends with the cutscene of like, oh no, everyone's been dead, and now Liara is standing here going like, well, shit. So that's kind of what it felt like to me, is they were trying to pull another thing from Mass Effect that they had been doing in Picard season 1 and 2 and parts of 3.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's like, get some new material. But but it was also just it wasn't handled as well, and I know that a lot of Mass Effect fans do not like the ending of 3 for very similar reasons.
Yeah. Pick your color.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, pick your color. So but Burnham did the I'm doing nothing and I'm throwing it away, and I also was very annoyed with the whole I'm going to make a decision that affects the entire galaxy, and I'm not even going to ask anybody. Like, not
which she claims she did it behind the scenes,
yeah,
but
she
it's
doesn't
like,
really.
well, I'll call the admiral and
I talked to the president.
They'll totally be on board. That doesn't. She thinks they will be, and that is what she says. But she could have gotten them on the phone. They'd be like, "Are you out of your Vulcan mind?" Oh wait, this is a little too inside baseball. Sorry. They could just ask her. They could have just totally shot her down. But at the end of it, she's like, "Nope, we're gonna torpedo launch this thing into a black hole, and then we're gonna peace out."
I mean, to be fair, someone could just pull it out because the technology exists to approach the event horizon. It's not that hard,
right?
But it was just, I don't know, it was very strange.
But again, if they do pull it out, what are they going to do with it? because they can't
the thing with the
really use
technology
it.
is like
Yeah,
the way that they described it. It sounded a lot like it was just simply a
photocopier.
not a photocopier, but like a gene splicer disseminator. So it just
Okay,
like took genes and like farted them across the galaxy through its portals. That,
fun. Like the
that's
Iconians. That was my one note. Is
yeah.
that it looked
It's
like
not the Iconians. Like the technology isn't the same, but
right, but they had that environment. That's what was inside, and
it
the
felt.
inside the
But there
TARDIS.
was a
Yeah,
lot of
was the
Iconian sort of. It
yeah
wasn't Iconian technology, but there were a lot of similarities, which
right.
again is where I got back to that Mass Effect thing where they were like, it's a cycle, and they actually used that word, which again was really annoying. So yeah, there was just a lot of stuff about that in particular that was just irritating. But anyway, to the point that you wanted me to address.
Please, by all means.
So at the end, you have this whole meeting between Kovich and Burnham, and they're in his office, and you get like this slow pan around like a couple things in his office to be like, oh,
Yeah, it was the Easter egg
knows
hunt, the
things.
inside
Like,
baseball
oh
Easter
look,
egg hunt.
it's
That's what they called it.
Geordi's visor, a bottle of
Yeah,
Chateau Picard, and then the one thing that it actually physically annoyed me
physically.
was Cisco's baseball.
Right.
Like, I don't know why that of all things annoyed me so much, but I think the reason that it annoyed me was one, it was too clean.
Right.
Two, that is a religious artifact to the people of Bajor.
Well,
You can't just take that.
right, and we know it's not like all the people of Bajor got wiped out by a comet or
Yeah, and the
something. We know
Bajorans are
that they're still
around.
around. They're still
So
around. Yeah,
it
exactly.
was just one of those like, I get your Easter egg, but that was not well
It
thought.
would be like, and we have the Ark of the Covenant here in my office. It'd be the same kind of thing, right? So a religious artifact. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very strange choice for me there.
Yeah.
But anyway, we get like there's like this Burnham does her like smug I know something look, which bugs me whenever she
She
does
gives
that.
you that Anthony Mackie look, like he knows secret.
Yeah, and so then eventually it's like, oh, I'm going to reintroduce myself, and you're going to introduce yourself correctly, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then
come on, let's go. Who are you? And so he reveals,
like, Kovich is like, I've been known by many names. Okay, but I am Daniels from the Starship Enterprise, and you're like, I just remember when that happened, I was just like,
he had to be somebody.
what?
All right, my nit to pick, because that's what I do. He identifies himself as Agent Daniels from the USS Enterprise. In fact, that vessel was simply known as Enterprise. NX-01.
Known as SS Enterprise during the Romulan War, but that was much later.
So. Yeah, and his last appearance on that show was in the second episode of the fourth season at the end of his story arc, the end of the temporal Cold Wars, and he went away.
It's over. So it's like, I am not opposed to seeing more of Agent Daniels. I liked Agent Daniels.
Right.
I just thought that this was a weird tie-in. It definitely felt like, obviously we know that they had planned on doing another however many seasons.
Right.
And so this was a reveal so they could do probably some more time travel shenanigan bullshit.
Right.
Because, then they brought in those Easter eggs. It's like, oh, well, maybe we could see some more legacy characters.
Right, exactly.
That's probably what they were aiming for.
If you were, and Aaron, feel free to chime in too, if he was to be another time traveling characters or someone else I would have preferred Gary Seven as a nice tie back to TOS, because I loved Robert Lansing's character. That was, of course, it was the season 2 finale of the original series called Assignment Earth. It was a backdoor pilot that didn't get picked up, that would have been starring Robert Lansing as Gary Seven, and then Terry Garr as Roberta Lincoln, his Gal Friday. That, I think, would have been a beautiful tie-in. But especially since their overall message was, we're going to touch all of Star Trek with this final season, that would have been the nice tie back for me.
Yeah,
but
if it was actually Gary Seven, that would have been a little bit more clever, if only because of the stuff that they had earlier in season 4 made it clear that the temporal Cold War was like Dunsky's.
Yeah,
after
everything. So why is
a little weird that Daniels would still be
Daniels immortal? I don't know. Aaron, did you have a different thought around?
I mean, I didn't hate it. I mean, I was like, yeah, okay, that's kind of cool. But But yeah, no, to me it doesn't make sense that the temporal Cold War is over to begin with, because if it's across all time and space, it's both
How could it?
simultaneously always happening and not happening. You know,
It is, and put away your fortune cookie machine. That's exactly.
I just yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. So wrapping up the episode, we get, the ooey gooey wedding between Tarina and Saru, which is delightful. You get the you knew it was coming big kiss and makeup with Book and Michael. And then we jump forward, 35, 40 something years, and we see Burnham as an older woman, Book as an older man. Clearly they've been married all that time. I thought their old age makeup can be such a mixed bag, and I think they nailed it.
This was actually pretty decent.
Yeah, I liked it. I think they made great strides to really make Michael look like the actress who played her mother, who was also in The Wire. She was a character in The Wire, who I subsequently realized, now I'm drawing a blank to the actress's name. Her mother, who then was also in the 31st century or 32nd century and was a warrior monk at that time. But we find out that she's an admiral and she's accompanying her adult son, who just achieved the rank of captain, to his first command. But she's going to execute a red directive. I only caught this on the second viewing because as I thought about it, I'm like, why would she have even known about this thing that she was supposed to do? Back in 2020, maybe 2019-ish, when the short treks, of which they're a part of our random history group, there were 2 seasons, I think, totaling 12 or 13 episodes. One of the very early of which had Discovery stranded in the distant future in the middle of a storm where some dude wakes up and the only person on the ship is Zora, who we've gotten to know over the last couple seasons as being the AI that powers the ship. And a romance between that character, whose name is, I've forgotten already. The segment was Calypso, but his name was
Kraft.
Thank you very much. Exactly. So Burnham oversees the ship being remade into its previous appearance and then flying it off to middle of nowhere to leave it there so that history can be... April and I were talking about this extensively. I found that to be kind of obnoxious because it was so inside baseball. The short treks were a number of years ago. I feel like people like us who are very diehard would have gotten the reference. I didn't have any problem picking up the reference at all. And we then went back and watched the short trek again. So I'm like, oh, all right, fine, it ties back.
I had to wiki it. I had no idea what they were talking
about.
Well,
you see, and again, you're not a casual fan because you do the show with us. Yeah. So, Peter, where did you stand with it? Were you clued in right away, or did you?
I knew what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, out of the 3 of us, and we're all pretty steeped in lore, 2 of us knew what was going on. The third was like, huh? No offense.
Yeah. No, that's an accurate depiction of how I reacted to it.
What? Yeah. So I just feel like it was a weird wrinkle to throw into the end of it, because I loved seeing, one of my closing notes was I really loved seeing Burnham's journey throughout these 5 seasons and the hundreds of years that cover the show. That she started out as a disgraced officer who became an inmate, who earned her future back and jumped into the future and reshaped the quadrant and became Space Jesus. Who isn't Space Jesus her other nickname, because she
that is
solves
she
solves absolutely all the problems everywhere all the time. That was the part of this that I enjoyed the most. But I really loathe all the stuff that Aaron talked about. Like, come on, she gets to be exactly the time cop, the Space Jesus, who decides that, well, we discovered what the progenitors are really all about, yet we didn't. And their tech is kind of cool, but it's kind of not. But we're just going to basically they just flush it down the toilet. That part of it kind of sucked. So yeah, the inside baseball ending I didn't like. The Michael bit, seeing her from hell and back, and that somebody actually gets a happy ending, where Cisco didn't get a happy ending, at least not on TV. He was off, or his family didn't. The TNG cast kind of did, but then they went on, which other cast didn't. TOS, they did. And the Voyager people did. So yes, I guess in the tradition of long happy endings, but everything with this show comes back to her. You want to say, oh, it's an ensemble cast, but she was stomping all over everybody all the time, which in my wrap-up notes, I give that. So I would say it's funny. I played around with my rating as we've been talking, and I can only really landed at about 50% of liking Michael's story. So this is a 5 out of 10 for me. As far as the total of the finales, it's above These Are the Voyages, but it's at the bottom. I'm a classic Trekker, largely like you guys. I'm Peter, you're younger than Aaron and I, but we grew up in the 90s watching all of the legacy stuff as it was happening, and that's still what Star Trek is to me. So yeah, I didn't absolutely love this. I was glad to see she got a happy ending, but I was still, the fact that Aaron had no idea what the hell, when she rode off into the sunset, what the hell was going on, that's not good. That's
Yeah.
really not good at all. So yeah. So all right, where Aaron, I mean, you were the most ardent about the plot. Where does this land out of 10 for you?
I was gonna say 5 out of 10, but then it's like, how dare you tease us with such awesome costumes and then do nothing with them at the very end? So that's a 4 out of 10 for me.
Those
Right there.
were absolutely great costumes. I totally agree, and I would be very happy to down one. Peter, how about you?
Well, for me, the ending was super tacked on. I mean, we all know why, but it definitely didn't feel like it fit with the rest of the episode.
Right.
And for me, the fact that they had to tie into the short trek was a little knife twist, insofar as this is the continuity hill you want to die on.
Right. Kind of like These Are the Voyages. The whole thing's a holodeck episode.
Well, that's a completely different continuity issue.
Right.
But
it still sucks.
But my point is like, I know, throw rocks all you want, but I have been screeching about continuity since Discovery aired.
Same.
And they have been telling me that it doesn't matter since it aired. And now we get the pigeonholed short trek that almost no one has seen.
Right.
That's the hill we want to die on and end our show on for continuity. That, for me, that was like the icing on the cake of, I'm not going to make the gesture on screen, but
if the icing was rat poison, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was just one of those, like, I appreciate that you're continuous with yourself with that, like, kudos. However, no, this doesn't work for me.
Oh no, I gotcha. All right, so what's the number?
3.
Ooh, wow. 3, 4, and a 5. Yeah, I like this a lot better before you guys ended up talking about it. I was swayed, which, you know what, that's okay. Wiser minds. All right, well, let's bring the series to an actual close. Let's try to talk about something positive for at least 1/3 of this next micro segment. Let's go through a favorite moment or a favorite episode in the entire series. Aaron, please.
So for me, my favorite moment would have to be the final episode of season 4, when they go and they meet the 10C. That whole thing, that was the first time that I watched Discovery, and I felt, yes, this is Star Trek. And I enjoyed that whole season. I thought it was solid, and I loved the finale, and I loved having first contact with an alien race, where one of the first times we had the budget and the technology had caught up to see something that was truly alien, non-humanoid, and see the Federation interacting with that in a visually dynamic way. So for me, that's always going to have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that. That's very insightful. I appreciate that, Peter. This is why I gave you the notes in advance, because it's a lot to think about.
It's been difficult for me to come up with something. I think my favorite moment, I think, was the little bit, I think it was the episode where they go to that one planet where there was an amalgam of religions with Pike.
Okay. So season 2, probably
um,
episode like 4 or 5, something like that.
Yeah, only because I liked Pike as a character, and I think that was where like the exploration side that Discovery was trying to get to really shone through.
Yeah.
Because it didn't feel like it worked as well. It definitely didn't work at all in season 1, and and in later seasons, like they were too season 2 did the same thing, but in later seasons there was too much of the MacGuffin quest that it didn't quite
Yes.
come out.
The mini kit quest.
Yeah, so I think that was probably the moment which was like, okay, this was something
Yeah.
that I could recognize as Star Trek that actually like was like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So
Solid. I actually chose an episode from season 3, Unification 3. And most recently we've been covering season 5 of Star Trek Next Generation, which we're going to get into in a moment here, talking about more of it. But this was a meaningful continuation of that episode. It did bring back Burnham's mother, who I had mentioned had also ended up in the 32nd century, and it joined I can never pronounce it. Peter, help me out. Quat Malash, the warrior nuns of the absolute candor of the Romulan species. But in the time in between, obviously the 23rd century and now, with the destruction of Romulus, eventually the Romulan people had reunited with their Vulcan cousins, and they were living on what we knew as Vulcan, which is now called Navarre. And this was the quest to bring them back into the Federation, but it had to be done within the complete logic and the total candor of those factions. And it was done to me in a wonderful memory of not only some played footage, which included Leonard Nimoy's appearance from Unification during the 5th season of TNG, but also gives Burnham a chance, metaphorically, to honor and to also say goodbye to her foster brother Spock, who she left behind at the end of season 2 when they jumped to the future. So I really like that. For me, it really hit on bringing what was into what is, and just kind of giving us a great story. So all right, least favorite moment or episode, and I took an overall theme, but I'll go last. But we'll go in the same order. Aaron, the low point of the series for you was what?
This is gonna sound bad. It's not as bad as I wanted to sound, but the entire time of me watching Discovery, I haven't been able to get over it. I cannot forgive Discovery for the first episode. Like right out the gate, the whole Michael and her mutiny and all that, it tainted the character for me through the entire series. And I tried so hard to forgive that and forget that and be like, okay, character development, because she does end up being, in my opinion, a good captain. And I think she had some excellent points, and she made some excellent decisions, and I don't think she's a bad character. But every time I see her and see her successes, in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking mutiny or traitor, and then it kind of comes back in this finale episode with her, jettisoning the thing into the black hole, because like, here you go again, being so arrogant. You think you know better than everyone else, and taking these decisions into your own hands, and just circumventing the chain of command, not talking to the president or that until after the fact and everything.
Well, they're definitely going to agree with me. She probably never even called them. I'll bet she's just like, I called and I texted, but they did it was unread. It was read, no response.
I let it ring once. I hung up.
Yeah. Oh no, I got voicemail, but I didn't
send on
unbother.
text and I went into airplane mode.
Yeah, exactly. I don't hear you.
So Vulcan hello. Never going to forgive the Vulcan hello. That's
I totally see where you're coming from, Peter.
I really don't know. Most of it was a down for me. I probably have to say I think I might have to agree with Aaron on this one.
Yeah.
That the very first episode it set the tone for the entire show for me.
You get a lead character that just is inherently unlikable.
Well, because like leading up to Discovery's season 1, like there was a lot of talk of like, we're not going to do an ensemble, we're going to focus on a character who's not the captain. And I remember myself saying, that seems like a bad idea, because Star Trek has been getting more and more ensemble-ish as it's been going on. Enterprise being a lot more ensemble, and it worked really, really well. I think that's my opinion. But then when you bring in Burnham, and then she's got, they're like asserting that she's a Vulcan, but at least me as the philosopher, I'm looking, there's no logic guiding her actions, and then you want me to root for this character who through her own hubris, gets her captain killed
And a lot of
and
other
starts
people,
a
and
war,
starts a war
and
that almost destroys the Federation.
basically
Yeah.
takes no responsibility for it. She's like, "Oh well, it was the right thing to do." No, that was stupid.
Yeah, right.
And she continued to do that throughout the entire show for me, where like everyone, sometimes her decisions were correct, but they always came from this. Again, this is my perspective. It always came from the same place of, I know better. Screw
Mhm.
you, because I'm the expert in everything because the plot says so. And
So
it was there was so much plot armor around this character in episode 1, and it continued, and it drove me nuts. And so yeah, episode 1 was just kind of like, because it set the tone for everything. I mean, it's the whole two-parter, that is not
yeah,
like just episode 1, but episode 1 and 2.
yeah.
Because it set that tone, and then you put this character front and center, and you're just like, you want me to like this character. You're asking me to like Nick Locarno, but worse, for an entire show. There's a
Which is
reason they
ironic.
didn't bring that character back for Voyager.
I was going to say, and we'll be talking about Nick Locarno here shortly, as a matter of
Yeah.
fact. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, let me, So least favorite moment for me, as I said, it was more of a theme. And I've talked about this time and again, the absolute at gunpoint, holding a knife to your throat, forcing background characters into the foreground and trying to make us really care about them
Only
in like seasons 3 and 4. Not in seasons 1. I mean, some of the background characters like Detmer and Awashikun, and I think Christopher was a later character, but Reese, for example, had been there for almost the entire time. But in seasons 4 and 5 in particular, they were like, they had Adira coming around and saying, "Oh, I really just want to be as cool as Detmer because nothing ever shakes her." And we're like, "What are you talking about? We don't know." We've seen this character for like 5 seconds, But again, to Peter's point, they were very on the button about the fact that this show would be focusing along a single solitary character. But then I just feel like they failed to get traction every time they tried to basically put an arm on the back of one of these background people and push them in front of the camera and saying, "Look, this is about so and so." Or they would have two of the background people having an argument, and it would be like, "Who the hell? I don't care what you think about things. Go back there and sit at your station and push some buttons." It's even in the original series background character, because again, our original beliefs, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, even those other characters, even Sulu and Uhura and Scotty in particular, got arcs and had episodes that focused on them from time to time. Chapel got episodes that focused on them from time to time.
Yeah.
And it worked, and it was interesting, and it delved deeper into a character that it's kind of set the table to grow things with them. But like I said, even earlier in this episode, we struggled to remember the name of the male Asian character. We danced around it because it's like, that's just, they shoved him out there every so often. So they just kept it going and trying to make it work, and it never did. So I thought that was the biggest detriment. All right. So let's try to maybe finish with something that could be positive. Discovery's greatest, okay, this should be positive. Discovery's greatest contribution to the legacy of Star Trek. Aaron.
I got to go back to the point that I made earlier in terms of the way that they kind of re-envisioned a lot of the classic characters and updated that and modernized it. And I realized that a lot of that was due to, some very, very strange legalities going on between Paramount and CBS,
Right.
where they had to make a lot of the characters 20% different in order to have the rights, or else, they would sue themselves. It's bizarre, and I think that they had a very hard job of breaking the ice and being the first show out the gate for this new era of streaming and Star Trek and Paramount Plus and all this stuff, and I mean, I got to give credit where it's due. That's a challenge for anybody. And, as a result of it, we've gotten, like Picard and Lower Decks, and, we've got Academy coming out. They were essentially the flagship for that, a new era of Trek, for bad or for worse.
Right.
They're the first ones out the gate.
Right. And that's mine isn't Peter. Maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. But yeah, that's what I think they owe to it is that Enterprise went out with a whimper, not a bang back in '05. We had the JJ films, less said about them the better, but that's just my opinion. But that was obviously not on television. So on TV, we had this 12-year gulp where there was no Star Trek on TV. Which TV is Star Trek's home. It's still where it belongs. Some of the films are great, some of them are god awful, but law of averages, we've had more good Trek on TV than we've had bad, and that's just if it's a volume game. But this brought it back, and it spawned more sequels than had existed in the past. It gave us two different types of animated shows. It gave us other live action shows that touch different eras. That's all very significant. And again, without a doubt, for me, all of the shows that follow Discovery are better than Discovery, but that's just what I think. For which we would not. So, Peter, any thoughts around that, or around something else?
I mean, to be cynical, Discovery's greatest contribution is Division, but it did bring Star Trek back to television and did allow for other things to be made. But if I were to say what its contribution to the fandom as a whole, unfortunately, that's what it would be.
Yeah. Well, like it or not, fans of whatever site they were did watch because they've seen it.
No, I'm not saying people didn't watch it or that it didn't do things. I'm just saying that seems to be what it brought into the fold, which is
a lot of Division. Yeah, you're right, because you didn't really feel that with basically from the golden era.
Even when there was the hate on Enterprise, which, to be fair, I was one of them. There wasn't you like Enterprise, well, you suck, or
you're
don't
not a real fan.
Or, you're not a real fan, or whatever. There wasn't that. There was a lot of people well, I like Enterprise, okay, whatever.
I like TNG better, or I like DS9 better, or I like blah blah blah.
There definitely was some of that nastiness, but it wasn't. It didn't feel as widespread, and part of that is just time and whatever culture is going on right now. But anyway. That's,
without a doubt,
Not to mention that whole Axonar thing that with the fan that left a bad taste in everyone's mouth going into it. They were they had problems out the gate because of that.
No doubt about it. But the great news is Discovery did spawn other shows again that people absolutely adore. I've scarcely talked to anyone who doesn't love Strange New Worlds. I haven't really talked to anyone who doesn't love Lower Decks. People seem to really enjoy Prodigy. That's still with us. Lower Decks is winding down. Strange New Worlds is ongoing. There are other projects in the pipeline. So we are in a second golden era, for lack of a better term, where everything is not going to be great, but in a lot of ways we have kind of something for everyone, and that's not a bad thing. So all right, Discovery, we salute you. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is probably not. Oh yeah, time for Peter. Oh yeah, woo! Mr. Quick Change,
not getting any deader.
Oh my God, I feel bad that because of the varying temperature down here in my studio, I rarely suit up because I just get too warm. But you know what? I'm really glad that both of you guys are rocking the TNG. So Peter, that was pretty great. So gold star for Peter on that one. Okay, this will likely not be a show that I revisit very often. So this is probably the big goodbye for me in Discovery. But you know what? You never know. You never know what the future might hold. Okay, let's move on to this. Has turned out to be a longer episode than we've had in a while, but you know what? I'm here for it. We've talked about, I think, a lot of key stuff. All right, second segment. And Aaron, this is the first time you've talked TNG with us because you were out for the last couple of episodes, but we are now at the halfway point of the 5th season of Star Trek Next Generation, which aired in 1991-1992 syndicated television season. And as I've mentioned time and again, this was the first season that I watched without fail, and I taped it without the commercials off of Channel 3. Aaron, do you remember how Channel 3 had that tracking issue when you would watch TNG, that the snow would move?
Oh,
yeah. That's just always what I think about when I think about this. Because DS9 was on Fox 17. My mom worked there. And that signal was clean. So, yes, I'll never forget the snow of TNG, and it's fun to watch it now in on Paramount Plus, where the picture is in HD and it's perfect. But anyway, I will kick us off with episode 14. And there's a little sadness around this because the guest star, Eric Anderson, who played the alien character in this, is revealed at the end, passed away a few days ago at age 67. They didn't really have any details, but I did see a headline late in the week. So our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. But anyway, episode 14 is Conundrum. Les Landau did the directing, story by Paul Schiffer, and teleplay by Barry Skolnick. Again, two names I'm not super familiar with, so this could potentially come from the slush pile. It's from February of 1992. The crew's memories are mysteriously erased by a mysterious erasing beam. They soon discovered that they're being manipulated to take part in a war, which you figure out pretty quickly in the episode, like in the cold open, when everybody gets zapped by a memory beam, and as the camera moves around, you see characters you're familiar, and then you see some fucking guy off in the corner who's also looking around. What's going on? And that's Eric Anderson, Commander McDuff. So, I dug this episode. Fun moment. Riker being my favorite Star Trek character. Fun moment for him because he kind of does what Riker does. He and Ensign Rowe, who are at each other's throats in the cold open, like riding in the elevator, they're having an argument.
Yep.
Throughout the course of the episode, she figures out that she wants to get with him, and she seduces him in his quarters. And then there's some real serious flirtation between Riker and Troy, where she's touching his hair, and there's almost a kiss moment. And then at the end of it all, because obviously they get their memories back, and much like the summary says, they were being manipulated by an alien race to blow up a alien space station, which they don't do. Riker walks into 10 forward, and then there's the two women sitting there dishing about him, and at the end of it, they both kind of flip him the bird. So I thought that was, while I thought it was a cool episode, and it was also neat to see Worf kind of assume a mantle of authority when
hysterical.
Yeah, and at the end of it, he's like, "Oh, Captain, well, here's the thing is, I was bossing around and sitting in your chair," and he's like, "Yeah, I guess it's fine," which is funny because it was very famously pointed out behind the scenes that Michael Dorn and Patrick Stewart really didn't get along so well, at least during the production of the show. So it was kind of interesting to see that interplay. But yeah, this is an episode I absolutely adore because, again, it's one of the ones that I was a regular viewer and really paid attention to. So, Aaron, your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. Fun episode. Enjoyed it a ton. I remember watching it and being really frustrated with Worf and the way he kind of took command and everything and how very warmongering he was as a leader.
Oh, we have all these weapons. Yes.
Yeah. That was driving me nuts, but like in a fun way. Like it was,
right.
It was a fun frustration. Like, this is not how it's supposed to be, Worf. Come on. I always remember, don't assume he's in command. I too am decorated. Like, I'll always remember that.
Yeah,
like,
look at my fancy ball gown. You know what I mean? Oh yes, I too am decorated. I love it. Good stuff.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
I love the mystery of the stranger on the bridge. It's like, as an audience member, we know, wait a minute, like that whole thing was a lot of fun, and that was a very rewarding payoff in the end. Just overall, just a really fun episode. I have no bad memories from it. It was fun.
Yeah. Oh, no pun intended. No bad memories.
Yeah, right.
What?
No memories of this thing.
I don't know what's happening. Peter, what about you?
I just kind of have to echo what both of you have said. This is just a fun episode. There's a lot of, I like the moments with Worf where he takes command and does his thing, where he's making commands, and then you see like Picard swivel around in Data's chair, or Data's the bartender because he just happened to be standing there at the time.
Right.
So there's just lots of just fun little moments where everyone's forgotten their memory. Like, obviously the Roe and Troy thing. I was rolling on the floor laughing. Because
ROFTOL.
The whole episode is a exercise in the correct understanding of irony, where we know something that the entire group of characters doesn't. And so it's just so ironically hilarious for everything that they're doing. Because they're doing all of these things earnestly and with complete seriousness, and you're just like, no, that's not in line with your character, but you don't know any better.
Yeah, right. So we get to
whole way.
Watch you fumble your way through it. Oh,
but
my gosh.
Good stuff. What's really great is you eventually see like the characters are more than just their memories, and like their values and everything come through. And get them to not do what Commander McDuff is trying to get them to do anyway. And so they still live through the ideals of the Federation, what they stand for, even if they don't remember. So that's kind of a cool thing. That goes on at the end. So yeah, but other than that, it's just a fun episode.
Yeah, rock
So.
solid, good stuff. All right, episode 15 is yours, Aaron.
Me?
Oh, yeah,
Or
it was
Aaron,
me.
or you. I don't know. You can flip a coin.
Okay.
But Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Episode 15, Power Play, directed by David Livingston, story by Paul Rubin and Maurice Hurley, teleplay by Renee Belser and Herbert Wright and Brandon Braga, original air date February 17th, 1992. Troy, O'Brien, and Data are possessed by entities who want to control the ship.
Bump, bump, bump. Kind of scary to see Data as a hyped up supervillain, with all of his abilities and everything.
Terrifying.
Yeah, big time, because he can do anything. So Aaron, your thoughts?
This is a good episode. I really enjoyed it. It was so intense. I'm always I'm a sucker for like crime dramas and stuff like this, and this was such a classic hostage situation, and it's interesting seeing the crew of the Enterprise having to deal with such an internal threat like this, and how they handle like the negotiation, everything, and back and forth with these really vile characters inhabiting some very key essential crew members that they would normally rely on a situation like this. Like the last person you want to have be compromised in a hostage situation is the ship's counselor,
Right.
and of course she's the ringleader of the whole thing, and that's just really forces them to play up some different roles. I mean, normally she'd be the one Picard would confide in and get insight in on how to handle it, but he's kind of on his own for this one and trying to resolve the whole situation. And it's just it was really good, very intense. I remember that scene with O'Brien and Keiko and him trying to being like, shut that baby up, and having a phaser on his own family like that. It's
right.
like, oh no,
yeah,
what's
I
gonna
know.
happen?
I did love in that whole scene that the villain characters are immune to phaser fire, so every time they got hit, they would just turn around and shoot back. But Troy does this one thing where she kind of pivots and does like a hip turn and goes pew. that was like, ooh, fashion forward with the phaser. I loved it. Oh man, Peter, what about you?
Yeah, it's not like an episode that I go back to on a regular basis, but it's a good one. So there's not a whole lot I can add that hasn't been already said.
That's all right. Good stuff. Well, that's good because we got a couple of heavy hitters coming up in a row. Plus one of my absolute favorites in the mix. So, Peter, why don't you give us episode 16?
All right, episode 16, Ethics, directed by Chip Chalmers, story by Sarah Charno and Stuart Charno. So possibly a submission. Teleplay by Ronald D. Moore.
Ooh, my guy.
Aired February 24th of 92.
Ooh, that's the week of my 16th birthday. How interesting.
Worf gets barreled and becomes paralyzed, possibly for life.
He got bowled over.
Yes, his nemesis, the Blue Barrel.
Oh.
So he asks Riker to assist him in the Hebat ceremony, a Klingon suicide ritual. Dr. Crusher consults a risk-taking researcher to save his life. Ooh. So this is actually one of the first times that we get reference to the redundancy of the Klingon anatomy,
which turned into Klingons having apparently two dicks, which was pointed out in Discovery. You guys are familiar with this, right?
Yeah, I remember seeing it and also thinking that it was kind of silly.
It was ridiculous, and it was and apologies, viewers, if you've not seen this, but it's in reference to the final episode of Discovery season 1, where you see a Klingon urinating against a wall, his back being to it, and seeing two streams. I don't think that really translates to having two wieners. I'm sorry.
One for casual, one for best.
Oh yeah, dress and casual.
Yeah,
business casual, business formal. Oh my God. Okay,
so,
Peter, back to you.
we've got this very interesting episode where you have this whole juxtaposition of the crew wants to help Worf, but he doesn't because he sees that his honor has been lost, and so we get more of this Klingon honor bit and wanting to commit suicide, which does come back at a later point in Deep Space Nine with his brother, and so we see how this whole circumstance kind of informs that later on. Um, but we have like at first Riker is like thinking about it and is possibly going to accept it, and then you actually get this really really interesting and I think really solid moment where he comes into the room and basically calls Worf a coward for
I know he was like, it's a good thing you can't get up because you probably kick my ass.
But it's this really interesting moment of Riker just being like, you are afraid to live with what this is and you don't want to try. Now, that's not to say like things aren't hard, and he recognizes that.
Right.
But it's very interesting to like Riker uses his tough love way to be like, well, I'm not going to help you because this isn't the way. Like your culture might say that, and he does like I'm told that I should respect your culture and all of this, but he's like, you're my friend, and I'm not going to do that because I don't think that this is the right way for you. So,
right.
Which is also which is a really, really good moment. And then of course we have the B plot where Dr. Crusher is dealing with this scientist who doesn't know what the hell she's doing.
Right. And it's just like,
time, and she's like
a very ends justify the means kind of.
Yeah, she's very ends justify the mean. Is like there's a couple times during the episode where she's like, oh yeah, I tried out my theoretical
thing on this person and they died. They would have died anyway. But the good news is I got a lot of data. And Dr. Crusher's like, you're fired, psycho.
And so like you eventually get the whole thing of like experimental science is what helps Worf recover. Cool.
Right.
Sometimes there's breakthroughs, but he was willing to do it is the key point here.
Right. Exactly.
But there's an interesting tie-in to
informed consent,
A and B points, and all that. So
exactly.
Solid episode. Lives up to its name.
Most definitely. All right. I did plenty of interjecting. So Aaron, I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah. I love this episode. To me, this is one of those episodes that represents, Star Trek kind of at its best, because here it is taking something that, is very much, I think a fear for everyone, being in the situation where you're essentially trapped inside your own body, and kind of taking that very primal, relatable fear and flipping the script on it, in that we're watching another alien culture and how they deal with a situation like this. And in this particular instance, it's a culture that has values that aren't necessarily compatible with our own. And having that lead to its own conflict among the crew, demonstrated beautifully between Riker's conversation with Worf and how that went. And I mean, that's pretty ballsy to tell Worf that he's a coward and everything, but at the same time, that's what a best friend does. When you're in a situation like that, you got to look at them sometimes and say, hey man, you're going about this the wrong way, and doing that. And that's, as a friend, one of the hardest things to do. And I've got nothing but respect for Riker for going through that.
Right.
And it's just, I mean, I think that's all I have to say about it for the most part. I just really enjoyed it. And it was really good.
A lot of tender character moments, in particular with younger Brian Bonsall, who played young Alexander. Troy, and you see the beginning of what was the thank God it didn't work out romance between Worf and Troy, but it was, in essence, it became a deeper friendship and respect, and that was really great. And then seeing a really great character moment between Picard and Dr. Crusher, where they have the debate with the conversation that kind of pushes her over the edge to allow this experimental genetronic procedure to be done, because they said this is as far as Worf can go. A lifetime of beliefs and values can't let him do anything else. He'd rather die than not be able to use his legs. So it was great, like I said. And we have kind of the next 3 out of the 4, including this one, are all very big heavy hitters, including getting into episode 17, which is The Outcast. Robert Scheer doing the directing. Jerry Taylor, who co-created Star Trek Voyager, is the writer. From March of 1992, Riker falls in love, or rather the character also falls in love with him, with an androgynous alien during their efforts to rescue others of the same race who are trapped in null space. Now, the whole null space thing is obviously very B-plot, but it's
basically negligible to the entire episode.
It's really, they do it and they're like, okay, we did it. During June, which is Pride Month, and again, That's not something that's necessarily personally significant to me, but I know it's significant to a lot of people, and I respect that. The entire plot line around, psychotectic treatments to correct someone in an androgynous race who prefers a gender, and this could be male and female, the way that we understand it, or certainly did at the time. I know things are definitely shifting, and I'm kind of stumbling around this topic because it's one I don't necessarily understand really great. Maybe other people understand it better or have more important feelings to me about it. But I found this to be an incredibly significant episode, even just to the enormity of gay and lesbian issues that existed at the time. For determining what is the seminal line, which Soren, who is the androgynous character that has a romance with Riker, when she simply says, "What right do you have to tell people how they should love each other?" I guess I can't necessarily disagree. It boils down to abortion issues and other things. It's just very, very big, and people have very strong feelings about it. And I'm sure we all have different kinds of feelings about it. But as an episode, if we keep our focus on the Star Trek lens of this and being able to tell a really powerful, relevant social commentary story, which is what Star Trek specializes in more than any other genre, I think it blows the doors off. So, Aaron.
This is one of those episodes that if it aired today, you'd have a lot of people online complaining about it. Oh, this episode is so woke. Star Trek is so woke. And then you have all these other people who are like, oh, that's why I like Star Trek, is because it's not political or anything. It's like, this is one of those episodes that we refer to when we say Star Trek has always been woke. It has always
Right.
had these ideals. This is nothing new. This is one of those penultimate episodes that we can refer to. And it's ironic because right now, being June, being Pride Month, we do weekly watch parties with Region 13, and I'm helping coordinate and run some of those this month. And we decided that we're going to do a theme where it's going to tie into Pride in some way. And this was the first episode that we ended up doing for the watch parties this week because it was so poignant and everything. And ironically, I ended up missing that watch party because I had other obligations, but I thought it was a great idea and it was a great episode too.
But here you are watching it and talk to us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also the first time we've actually had a watch party episode that coincides with what we're supposed to be watching for this show, and I ended up missing. That's my life. If it weren't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any at all. But this was a really good episode. It definitely made me feel a certain way about things. I felt so bad for the character and what she was going through. I always have sympathy for anyone who's in this situation, especially when there's a romance going on with someone of the same gender or someone of who's going through transitions and stuff like that, and trying to find their identity. It hits close to home for me because I've got a lot of family members who are currently transitioning, and I'm working with them and trying to help them and let them know that we love them and we are doing our best to be supportive and everything. And it hurts, seeing this in live TV because you can relate to it so much more.
Right. From 30 years ago. Yeah. I mean,
right, yeah. Like 30 years ago, I was like, oh, wow, this is a really cool episode. But now watching it today, it's like, gosh, I'm going through this. This is rough, and I just feel bad for them, because, I my whole thing is, live and let live and love and try to accept people as they are. And whenever I see people not do that, it just hits me in a hard way.
I hear you. Yeah.
With that.
Was that a tough one? Peter, I know that you are much more of a traditional person. Where do you land with this episode?
This episode is fine. It's not my favorite. As I've said before, I'm never really a huge fan when Star Trek starts to deal with sex because it's always weird.
Kirk, green women, I gotcha.
If you watch TOS, like anytime it comes up, it's bizarre. When it comes up in TNG, it's often handled very weirdly.
The planet with all the naked people in season 1,
yeah,
the Edo or the Eden,
yeah, that's probably the one I'm thinking of. But so for me, this episode is kind of like and when I saw it for the first time, I didn't really know what was going on in this episode, because to me, having androgynous aliens is like, okay, that's a possibility, whatever. It didn't make that much of an effect. Later on, I figured out what was going on and what this episode was trying to talk about. And I was like, oh, okay, I could see that, but that's not originally how I read it because I didn't know. When I saw this episode, I think I was 12.
Yeah, that's a stretch because again,
So-
I was 16 and I didn't know any gay people at that point. The first gay person I knew was gay was my Uncle Chris, my dad's younger brother, and that's when I was 18.
Yeah,
And he was in his 30s, and he came out. He let us know that he was gay, and then you meet more and more just in the world. You meet more people
yeah, I mean,
who have
people are
all
people.
kinds
Like,
of
that's
kinds of
just
people.
how it is. But
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know. There's stuff in this episode that I think was handled well, and there's things in this episode that I don't think were handled terribly well.
Mhm.
Like the fact that there's like Soren discovering like what it is to be different that's handled pretty well.
Mhm.
But the I'm not there's I'm not sure that there's a better way to put this, but the way that Riker straight up goes down and like basically bashes down the face of the entire group wasn't the
Super great.
best.
Yeah.
Like, I understand where he's coming from. I understand why, but at least coming from like the Star Trek world, like without
Right.
looking at the meta,
The
like,
Prime Directive.
there's the Prime
exactly.
Directive that comes into play, and there's just some things that like I understand what you're trying to do social commentary wise, but it doesn't quite
really Star
gel.
Trek it. Yeah.
And that is where I would also point out that to me, when Star Trek gets like that, where it's trying to make its point so hard, that's where its social commentary doesn't work as well. And I know I've been hammering Discovery because it feels like a 2x4, and this episode. While there's parts of it that are handled well, there's the moment of Riker in the room feels kind of like that 2x4, and so there's part of me that doesn't think that quite works as well as they wanted it to, if that makes sense.
I suppose. Yeah. I appreciate the perspective without a doubt.
But that's because again, that's the way I prefer different kinds of writing where it's a little bit more subtle.
Yeah.
So I don't tend to be the biggest fan of like over the head stuff.
Bonk.
Because like the ones that Roddenberry wrote in TOS are some of the ones that I'm more critical of, honestly.
Right. A little bit more. Yeah, no, I understand. Well, all right, let's move it along. Aaron, I think Peter, you're up.
Okay.
Episode 18.
Episode 18, Cause and Effect, directed by Jonathan Frakes, written by Brandon Braga, by himself this time. Aired March 23rd of 92. The Enterprise becomes stuck in a time loop, but the crew retain some memory of previous instances. We have a guest star of Kelsey Grammer as Captain Morgan Bateson.
Awesome! I love it. Yeah, this is. I was deep into like watching it and enjoying it. It was funny. A high school friend of mine at the time, she had also watched it this week, and I was watching this episode, and then it would go to commercial, and it would come back and start again, and I was like, did Channel 3 screw up? Yeah, exactly.
Confused.
Like, what the hell's going on?
Which was
but this was really cool. Great Trek plot. A time twist. The crew was never really in any danger, to be honest with you, except for not being able to escape the loop. So that, within, 44 minutes and 18 seconds for as long as the episode was. But it was a cool premise. They're headed into a nebula and another ship pops out of a cloud and smashes into them and destroys, one would assume, both ships. And it takes, Dr. Crusher being the one who's having the enhanced version of Vujade or Nikpach. That's how through a card game, and then voices that she's hearing, because voices from past loops and kind of intrude on her while she's sleeping, and then she gets Data and Geordi. So everybody's working together, except for Worf, who's saying, "I am thinking this Klingon thing about it" or whatever. But they figure out a way to get Data to know that Riker says decompress main shuttle bay. The explosive decompression might kick us out of the way. And he said, "Well, I saw the rank pips on his collar, and that's how I knew that we had to do his suggestion." I'm like, that seems like a very Data thing to figure out. And then at the end of it, we get Kelsey Grammer, who then ended up going on to have his own novel. As he was the shakedown captain of the Enterprise E, and there was a whole
Ship of
story
the
around
Line,
that.
yep.
Yeah, Ship of the Line. So, but it was super cool to see Kelsey Grammer. This was right before, it was right at the end of Cheers, right before Frasier started in 1992. So yeah, one of my favorite episodes, and we'll always just remember that. And apparently, it was shared by me and my friend Lorelai from high school, and then obviously from Peter, that they thought the TV station had a stuck tape. So, Aaron, your thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely love this episode. That whole the sec tape thing that happened to me too. Like
Yeah.
I remember watching it the first time and being like, "What is going on?"
I'm sure they were
Come on
snickering
now.
in the writers' room about that. Like,
They were like,
we're gonna
"Oh,
get everybody."
we only have to do like 60% of the work this week because we're just using the same script over and over again for most lines."
Right? It is so much fun. You know, this is one of those ones that it's one of those ones that I had to come back to multiple times
Yeah.
to understand what's going on, especially with the way they resolve things. And I think I finally understand it. Because the whole thing when like he's stealing the cars and everything is a multiples of 3 and all this stuff popping up, the recurrence of the number 3 constantly happening. I'm like, I don't understand. If the ship exploded, how are they stacking the deck and having all this stuff prepared, ready to go? Of course, now I realize that the only thing that they could change and retain is their memories and everything. So it's a programming bug that they put into Data, and Data was doing all this in real time throughout the episode. It took I'm embarrassed to say it took me 20 to 30 years to figure that out and understand that.
Whoops.
But it really did. But now that I get it and I understand it, it's a lot of fun, and I enjoyed the episode. Love the cameo of Kelsey Grammer at the end and the old Monster Maroon.
Yeah.
When that comes through, that was a lot of fun seeing that. You know, even though it was just a little brief cameo, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Overall, just a solid episode, and had a ton of fun watching it.
For sure. Peter, did I skip over you? Now I'm forgetting. We've been recording so long.
But
No.
it's a great episode. So
Yeah.
again, the stuck tape thing. The first time I saw this was on Spike TV in the early 2000s on satellite.
Spike TV.
But so you're still sitting there going like, what is going on?
They got a glitch. There's a glitch in the Matrix.
But it is one of my favorite in terms of just the interestingness of how they planned it all out and how they worked it all out. It is one that I often, with a smirk, threaten to have someone watch for their first episode just to mess with them.
What? Is the whole series like this?
Yeah, just to mess with them. Would I ever?
Yeah.
No, but I like to joke with people who know the episode, and they're like, "What episode should I show someone for the first time?" I'm like, "Well, you should really show them Cause and Effect." And they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Why not?"
Because it's mean, and you know what?
So
the world is a cruel place.
It's just funny. So, but it's a fun episode. I really like how they, this is one of the times where you actually see the Enterprise blow up, and so like the cold open, the tease was actually quite shocking the first time you saw it.
Yeah, it was totally awesome.
What just happened? The Enterprise exploded. So there's just lots of fun stuff in this episode. And it's a good one.
For sure. All right, Aaron, take us home with episode 19, please.
Episode 19, The First Duty, directed by Paul Lynch, story by Ronald D. Moore and Naren Shankar. Original air date, March 30th, 1992. Wesley is questioned over a Starfleet Academy flight training accident. Guest star Ray Walston as Boothby.
My favorite Martian. That was his famous show.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Boothby, a character that we end up getting returned in an episode of Star Trek Voyager. And we meet
Nick Locarno.
Nick Locarno, who Robert Duncan McNeil, hello, who obviously becomes Tom Paris, and the age of and all the the people who think they're clever, like, how come he wasn't the same character and stuff back in Voyager? Well, I think it's pretty obvious because Nick Locarno is an asshole, and you wouldn't want to try to have an ensemble character that is just eminently hateable, because that's really what he was. But anyway, yes, that's my oh, Peter, you look like you have something to say about it. Yeah, go ahead. Nope. All right, Aaron, back to you. What'd you think?
Yeah, Nick Locarno, Tom Paris, I don't see the resemblance.
No, really, it's there.
It's the same guy. great
I don't
temples, but
see
that's
it.
it. Yeah,
Don't see it. Yeah. No, this is an episode that's over the years has definitely become like one of my all-time favorite Star Trek episodes.
for sure.
It's a ton of fun. I love it. I love to me really embodies what it means to be a Starfleet officer in a lot of ways and gets down to the heart of it. And at the risk of sounding a bit like an asshole, it's kind of nice to see Wesley get taken down a peg or two in an episode. He's been Wonder Boy for so many years. It's kind of
Nice
nice
to
to
see him
he's-
screw up.
Yeah, yeah, just a little bit. But I mean, we get some great Picard speeches, and those are always the best episodes.
Yeah,
When you get Picard telling it like it is, um, and this is such one of those episodes that reverberates and leads to like the episode called Lower Decks that is kind of a continuation of the story in this, which
right,
of course becomes the concept for the show Lower Decks.
right,
So it's a historically important episode to
right,
Starfleet in many ways. I mean, there's a lot of layers on this onion,
right.
and it's just absolutely great. For the longest time, I actually thought I 100% believed that Nick Locarno and Tom Paris were the same character, and it was just Nick Locarno was like an alias he came up with to go through Starfleet Academy and not have the shadow of his dad looming over everything he does. So that was always my headcanon. Obviously now we know they're two completely different
Right.
characters.
Right, because the Nick Locarno character obviously returns in the most recent season finale of Lower Decks, the two-parter where he, it's a season-long arc where he's assembling his own private,
And then he gets a
fleet.
paywall that finishes him off. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This guy sucks, to quote
Yeah.
Mariner. But yeah, what an absolutely powerful episode about doing the right thing and not succumbing to peer pressure and putting your cards on the table when you're wrong and doing what's necessary to rectify you know in this case his participation in a dangerous stunt that resulted in the death of his friend. But the charismatic Nick Locarno was like, well, I always kind of thought this guy sucked and it was all his fault, and doesn't mean that we should all twist in the wind for it. And Wesley's like, well, yeah, but the accident wasn't his fault. We all did it. Well, he's dead now, so it doesn't mean that we should all have to hang for it. Like, the guy was just a real jackass. But at the end of it, Nick Locarno took all the blame and then took all the real punishment for it. He got kicked out, and the others,
which you can respect for that character. Like at the
that you can, yeah.
At the end of the episode, there was actually a little bit of, I'm not gonna say redemption because it wasn't quite that, but there was the moment where Locarno owned the mistake,
Right,
and that was something that I thought was a really good character moment for him.
Off screen, because it didn't actually happen.
Right,
it was
recapped.
recapped.
We're told that it happened.
Right.
But like it was a good moment. It's also something that Lower Decks didn't really address, which was, I thought, odd.
Right, because even in that episode of Lower Decks, they illustrated that Mariner is the same age as Wesley, was at the academy at the same time, and was periphery to that friend group, including we get to see Joshua Albert, who is the cadet who died, in animated form. So you actually get to see him. And so that's how she knew Nick Locarno, and that was the crux of that episode.
Yeah,
so.
But I just thought it was interesting how that he just becomes like, this megalomaniac, which works for Lower Decks because Lower Decks it does its own thing.
They're always
I
going
just thought it was
bigger and more
how,
silly, right?
Like that particular thing where he owned and took full responsibility, like that didn't seem to be taken into account later on. But regardless, the rest of the episode, the like Picard's speech, that's one of my favorite speeches that he ever gave.
Totally.
The first duty of every Starfleet officer is to the truth.
Is to the truth,
no
matter what.
I sometimes have to say to people about other things,
Same. Yeah. It's very true.
So it's one of those things that it doesn't matter where you sit, like that thing that Picard says, like we owe the truth, is something that is universally true.
Yeah.
And so it's really good there. It's also fun to see Boothby and see like a little glimpse into what helped form Picard into the captain that he is.
Right.
Because if we remember, like a little while ago, Picard told Wesley to look for Boothby.
Right. Early in the season, exactly.
And so now we get to see this character and get a little bit of more understanding of like who this wise old man is
Too bad we couldn't have gotten like a hologram Boothby or a head in a jar in Picard of Boothby coming back to hang out with Picard.
He should have at least there should have at least been like a memorial somewhere, which I don't
Yeah.
think we had.
Yeah, give him a good shout out. It's kind of a bummer. So, all right. Well, that takes us to the end of this crop of the episodes. And as always, we shall all select a favorite and a least favorite. And I'll go all the way to my extreme left to Aaron. Let's have a favorite and a least favorite of the group.
For me, I think that my favorite, of course, would have to be First Duty. It's just a classic, and it I guess you could say it fills me with life and pride to be a member of SFI and everything, and it's I don't know what else I can say. It's just a near perfect Star Trek episode in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
For me, least favorite for me is probably going to be. I don't know. There are a lot of really good ones. I think my least favorite was probably Power Play. I mean, it was a good episode. There was nothing wrong with it, but it's not that it was in any way a bad episode, but to me, it was the least interesting out of the bunch.
Yeah, that's fair. And
That's
kind
fair.
of a kind of a tough grouping. And it's great when we have a group of 6-7 episodes that we have to really struggle to find the one that's not as good. All right, Peter, what do you say?
I mean, for best episode, I probably still have to go with First Duty. It just stands head and shoulders above. Like, as much as I love Conundrum and Rose shenanigans, because I always love Rose shenanigans.
Yeah.
There's something about the First Duty that just is. It's just a really good episode with all of its multiple moving parts and challenging of the characters and all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, First Duty is my favorite out of all of this. In terms of least favorite, I'm probably gonna go with The Outcast, just because I didn't really enjoy it that much. But again, that's because I just don't really care for episodes in Star Trek that deal with sex, because I just don't care that much.
That's as valid as anybody's opinion. That's the beauty of all of this. Well, I would it would be very reasonable to select the First Duty, but I'm actually going to go with ethics. I do like seeing the challenging of cultural perceptions. For Worf, if you're not a warrior who fights, you should be dead. For us humans, we're like, well, people who, people can, I mean, God, by this point, we could, they'd fit him with some things and he should be just fine walking, and that's good enough, or he could live in a wheelchair. And Picard really stands to his guns. He says, you know what, that's a very human attitude of you, he says to Riker, he says it to Crusher, where you're asking Worf to throw away a lifetime of values of feeling a certain way, and it's too far for him to go. So with informed consent, he'll undergo this procedure, and if he dies, he dies. He accepts that because it's all that his cultural beliefs can allow him to do. Even though he has things to live for, blah blah, still he's a Klingon, and that's it's an expression I learned not that long ago is sometimes you have to meet people where they are, not where you think they should be. And that's where Worf is. So fortunately it ends up working out for him, but he would have, he would have died on his own terms. And in a lot of ways, you can really respect that, even if it didn't, even if there was others that left behind. And yeah, I'll triple up with Power Play being an okay episode, but being pretty forgettable. I think Spiner, chewed a lot of scenery as, the superpower bad guy, but again, very forgettable. Kind of really not the creme of the badge. So, all right. Wow. Long, like twice as long episodes as we usually do. But you guys, we covered a lot of ground. You did great. Very exciting stuff. So we will be back in our next episode. We're taking on, as I said, a random episode, which was chosen by Dice Roll. That would be Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1, The Arsenal of Freedom, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, it'll be a surprise for you. And then we will conclude the 5th season of Star Trek The Next Generation. So before I get to our regular outros, do keep in mind the mailbag is opened up at secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. talk to us about what you think about the episode, what you thought about the end of Discovery, what you think about the legacy of Discovery, what you think about our thoughts about the Next Generation episodes we talked about. And if they're not thoroughly laced with profanity, we'll even read them on the show. But with that, gentlemen, thank you for joining me up. Aaron, where do people find you out there?
You can find all my links for my chapter at ussrhapsody.org.
Excellent. Peter, what about you?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas. Generally, you can find me on Discord for the chapter. You can also find me on ELH's Twitch channel playing Star Trek Adventures and behind the scenes at Starship Excelsior.
Totally awesome. Well, you can find me on Threads and Instagram at the C3, TheCeeThree, the C3. Spend a heck of a lot of time in both our Secret Friends Unite and our USS Grand Petoskey Discords. My wife and I are actually cooking up a new Star Trek fan project, which I will be talking about and not only promoting on the show, but cross-promoting on the Discord we're planning to start for it. Not related to SFI. Love SFI. Love our chapter, but interested in trying out something new. So you'll be hearing about that on this program in the near future. Gentlemen, once again, thank you for joining me. Friends, thank you for listening to our show. I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
Remember, 1,000 stars is a million maybes.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.